Good day to Dr. Raju. We are Group 6 from the Class L. I'm Jonathan and I will briefly explain what is human right. Human rights are rights belong to Malaysians regardless of their nationalities, residential status, genders, ethnic origins, religions or identity. However, several Malaysian law claims to limit the fundamental of Malaysian citizen human rights. In this study, we will focus three issues of the human right in Malaysia, which are freedom of expressions, police abuse, and impunities, corruption and lack of transparency of government as well. There are some cases we mentioned on the report. In February 2021, activist artist Fahmi Reza was charged by the police when he voiced out to criticize the government decision which allowed beer factory operate during COVID-19 lockdowns. Also, three publications were banned in October 2022 on the grounds of being discriminated to morality. In the same year, a DAP campaign worker in Johor was arrested for encouraging ethics Indian Malaysians not to vote for the Malaysian Indian Congress. On January 13, 2022, a 63-year-old teen passed away in a police lockup where he should be transferred to the prison for the court says of stealing motor vehicles and causing injury with a weapon. Furthermore, a migrant worker who has been subjected to illegally staying in Malaysia. This what happens in June 2022. According to the Start News, former Prime Minister Najib Razak convictions for charge related to a government-owned development fund were upheld by the federal court in August 2022. Similarly, in September, Najib's wife Rosmah Mansour was found guilty of corruption charge involving a solar energy project and sentenced to 10 years in prison along with 970 million fine. In February 2022, Sakrum Nizam Baharuddin pleaded guilty to his involvement in the criminal branch of trust case in which he took a large sums of cash as evidence.
So basically, there are three major human rights issues happen in Malaysia. They are the freedom of expression, police abuse and impunity, and the last one is corruptions and lack of transparency in government. First of all, let's talk about the freedom of expressions. The Malaysian government always restricts the freedom of expressions among the citizens. There are some cases that can fully emphasize on this issue. For example, in the case of February 2021, Fahmi Reza, he was charged by police for annoying others through social media posts. His charges was based on the social media post of an image that he shared in June 2021 with beer cans and a political party logo with the phrase of "Customers for all." The reason that he was posting the image was to criticize the government decisions on allowing beer factories to operate while the other business was forced to close during the lockdown of COVID-19. But eventually, the charges that against Fahmi were dropped in August 2022.
Hello, my name is Husnul Amalia binti Abdul Aziz. My metric number is 278271 and I will continue the presentation. Article 10 Federal Constitution of Malaysia has allocated that the action of provocating, hating and deviance against the government is considered sedition. Citizens have the right to say anything they like without breaking the rules and regulation, but the action of Fahmi Reza is violating the rules by spreading haters against the government. Therefore, the government has the right to elect Fahmi Reza suitable with the appropriate acts under the restriction freedom of speech. On the other hand, government action by allowing the operation of Carlsberg factories is violating the rules of utilitarianism theory. The operating of Carlsberg factories did not give entire benefits to the people in the meantime when COVID-19 was stirring. As a result, on June 2021, former Prime Minister Dato Ismail Sabri has ordered the immediate closure of beer factories as it was not considered as essential products to operate in the meantime.
Besides that, the government has the power to control news content and censor print and broadcast media. There is a case in October 2022. The Ministry of Home Affairs banned three publications for being detrimental to morality. These three publications were deemed to contain obscene and immoral content and seen as promoting the LGBTQI plus culture. The ban was justified under the Section 6 Acts of Violence, Criminalizations and Other Abuse based on sexual orientation, gender identifications or expressions, and also sex characteristics.
In this case, LGBTQI+ is referring to the human rights and social justice as claimed by their followers. However, the equality applied by these three publications are opposing the human rights and social justice as it goes against religion and cultural sensitivity in Malaysia. According to the theory of ethical relativism, certain behavior might be morally acceptable in one community but might be unethical in another community. As for this situation, LGBTQI+ culture is unethical in Malaysia as it is opposed with the community norms. The equality motivated by that culture, which is lesbians and gay men should be able to freely express their sincere affection, is an absurd in this country, which is against the human nature and contradicts with the cultural value and social norms. Ministry of Home Affairs has banning the publications, and those who disobey the order may face action from the government.
Additionally, the Malaysian government has also limited the access to certain online content and also monitors the internet to suppress political dissent. The case that happened in April 2022, the AP campaign worker in Johor State has been arrested under the Section 4(1) of the Sedition Act of 1948. The arrest was based on the Facebook post allegedly encouraging ethnic Indian Malaysian not to vote for the Malaysian Indian Congress. Therefore, this case has been shown that the government restricts the ability of citizens to engage in open discussions and express their opinions freely.
In this case, the DAP campaign worker is violating the utilitarianism by inciting Indians to not voting for the Malaysian Indian Congress (MIC), which is against the freedom of voting. Under this theory, Malaysian citizens have the rights to vote the party they favour without compulsion from other parties. It demonstrates that the AP campaign worker in Johor are lack of human rights towards the constituency election and has committed incitement to the public. As a result, if found guilty, he could face a fine up to RM5,000 and prison up to 3 years.
Let's move to the second issue of human rights in Malaysia, which is the police abuse and impunity. There are several reports that indicates the government or its agent involved in arbitrary or unlawful killings, mainly within the prison system. There is one case that can emphasize on the issue, which is 2022 January, a 63-year-old detainee dies in a police lockup in Taiping, Perak State. He had been charged for stealing motor vehicle and also causing injury with a weapon. Despite facing charges in the court, he was kept in a police lockup instead of being sent back to the prison complex. The Royal Malaysian Police charged 2 police officers and 2 inmates with causing harm in relation to a death. But in November, there is no conviction have been made in relation to the case.
In this case, the regulatory approach is suitable for this condition under the Environmental Rights Tort Law. The police officers in charge for the imprisonment could be alleged under Tort Law. The police officers are imposed some liabilities to responsible for the harm that causes the 63-year-old detainee sentenced to death. In terms of human rights, the police officers should impose to a further legal rights in order to defend the needs of a detainee. Therefore, the theory of principle and right would be protect the detainee as he shall be prosecuted only for his sentence imposed on him and from violating the leave of the detainee.
Besides, in Malaysia, there are no specific laws that are prohibiting the torture in Malaysia. Therefore, caning is one of the common punishment in Malaysia. In the case of migrant worker, Sabri Umar highlights the police abuse and impunity. In this case, Sabri, who possessed valid documents such as the passport and everything, he was wrongly subjected to caning while appealing his conviction for staying illegally in Malaysia. His caning in June 2022 drew strong condemnation from human rights groups. Those human rights group has called government for apology, abolitions of caning as a sentence, and also mainly focus on addressing the police abuse and impunity.
In this case, according to the theory of employee rights, the worker has the right grounded in moral entitlements, in which the worker has a claim of any particular legal or contractual factors. The worker has a strong arguments to receive sentence after the appeal is being received in order to reduce the penalty imposed on as the worker has a valid Indonesian passport and work pass from the company. The worker deserves human rights and social justice. As a result, the worker cannot be charged under Section 6(1)(c) of the Immigration Act.
The third human rights issue in Malaysia is corruption and lack of transparency in government. In Malaysia, there are laws that exist to punish officials who are involved in corruption. For example, the former Prime Minister Najib Razak's convictions for charges related to a government-owned development fund were upheld by the Federal Court in August 2022. Najib was sentenced to prison for 12 years and also fined for 210 million ringgit. On the other hand, his wife in September was pleaded guilty for corruption charges related to a solar energy project. She was sentenced to prison for 10 years and also fined for 970 million ringgit Malaysia.
The case of former Prime Minister Najib Razak are following the retribution justice. He and his wife both are receiving punishment as a return for their actions by misusing the government-owned development fund and involved in the corruption.
Besides the former Minister of Home Affairs, Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, he was facing 47 corruption charges back in 2022. Besides, the enforcement officer of MACC, Shahrul Nizam, was pleaded guilty in February 2022. He was sentenced for prison for 3 years because of the abuse of power within the MACC.
On the other hand, the case of Ahmad Zahid Hamidi is violating the justice and fairness theory, which is retribution justice. He freed from charges involving the 47 cases of corruption without the proper penalties by relevant institutions.
There have 5 impacts of human rights issues in Malaysia. Firstly is dignity and equality. Human rights help ensure that all individuals are treated with equal without discriminating against any group to harmonize society in Malaysia. As a result, equality obtaining basic freedoms such as freedom of religion, education, health, and employment in Malaysia. Secondly, freedom of speech. Human rights has been to protect freedom of expression by allowing individuals to express their ideas. As a result, it fosters an active and productive democracy through open dialogue. Thirdly, rule of law and justice. Human rights has ensured that people get fair and can process and trial even they commit with crime. For example, ensure that individuals accused of crime in Malaysia are protected from any violence and only receive the punishment ordered by the court. Fourth, human rights play an important role in protecting the rights of vulnerable groups such as women, children, and minorities. For example, the impact of human rights has ensured that children in Malaysia are protected from abuse and receive a proper education in Malaysia. Lastly, human rights have an impact on the Malaysian international obligation and reputation. Malaysia has committed to uphold and respect the principle of human rights. By fulfilling this obligation, Malaysia can improve the reputation as a responsible and progressive country.
Thank you for previous presenter. My name is Chavan Jet, metro number 279520. I will continue to present solution related to ethical theory. The solution that we use will based on just 4 theory. The first is human right theory, second virtual theory, third rights-based theory, and the last utilitarian. The first theory is human right theory. Human right means everyone should have basic right and freedom from birth until death, and they apply no matter who you are, what you believe, or how you conduct your life. And there's 4 basic rights that must have in Malaysia, which is freedom of speech, assembly and movement, religion, and political freedom. In order to make sure the 4 basic rights exist in Malaysia, laws that safeguard people and organizations with decreasing corruption and unethical behavior must be in place. The second theory is virtual theory. It defines good action as one that display embody virtual characteristic trait like correct loyalty or wisdoms. And this theory is suitable for police action and intuitive. And the solution is given morality upright police a higher priority when it's come to hiring and training in the criminal justice system. The training course should include empathy, escalation skill, and anti-racist training and so. An ethic theory known as right-based ethics strongly emphasize the inherent right and dignity of every person. In this theory, citizens have a right to be informed about how their government works, participate in decision making, and hold elected officials responsible. And government should respect and define this right by making information readily, encouraging public engagement, and creating independent monitoring the mechanism. The last theory is utilitarian theories. In this theory, focus on maximizing the overall well-being of society. When in this scenario of corruption and lack of transparency, the parliament or the law sector should put in place strict anti-corruption legislation and rules together with efficient enforcement system in order to overcome the corruption and lack of transparency problem.
My name is Moyukun. Metric number is 276268. Next, I will introduce our conclusion. First of all, we believe that human rights are common and should be not differentiated by gender, race, religion, and social state. But human rights are also not special fact to one country. We focus on 3 main areas of current human rights issues in Malaysia: freedom of expression, police impunity, and government transparency. We believe that the human rights issues in Malaysia are mainly related to the people's dignity, agent brief, and vulnerable groups. Therefore, we recommend the setting up of supervisory department and across to strengthen the right of the people. Next, we move to lessons. There are there are 3 lessons have been learned in relation to the 3 current human rights issues in Malaysia discussed earlier. First, the ability to express oneself equally and to exchange ideas freely is a sign of happiness. It is unhappy when people are not able to express their views because they are oppressed. Secondly, ensuring human dignity is basis for the expression of human rights. As mentioned before, as long as he is a human being, he should be respected. Finally, human rights can be reflected in how much benefit people received.